from present in the past. Every week will be an animated bash. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! Maybe a short but mostly shows. We'll talk, we'll analyze, exploring as we go. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to What a Cartoon, where we don't forget to try and mind. I'm your host, the ripped off by Disney, Bob Mackey, and this is an audio exploration of every cartoon ever who is here with me today.
Oui, Bob, he's Henry Gilbert. I will do this podcast with a French accent.
And What a Cartoon is now canceled. And today's episode is the Nadia, the Secret of Blue Water episode, Marie's Island. Are you awake yet? The second act is starting, people. Wake up. Time for more Nadia. So yes, we are doing another anime series. Woo! And in case you don't know, this is the anime series that the production company GAINAX made before the legendary Neon Genesis Evangelion. And it involved most of the same people, especially the character designer, the guy who did the music, and the series director. So the three in charge of Eva also did Nadia.
Yeah, it's kind of like Eva practice for them as their first TV show. I couldn't believe it's 30 years old, or basically 30 years old now. It's crazy.
It's nuts.
Yeah, I touched on this show briefly in our Evangelion episode, but Evangelion was enough of like a monstrous glacier that you kind of have to just float right by Nadia and be like, and that was a show too.
Yeah, just 40 episodes. One of their few TV series they made.
Yeah. I mean, TV's not cheap, and it sounds like it's even more trying than doing like an OVA or a movie, just because of the constant deadlines. Like that, it's enough to drive a man into a horrible depression.
4 years worth of depression. Come out of that and make one of the greatest series of all time. But I will say, so there's a lot of history I will talk about with Nadia. I will say, go back to our Evangelion episode and listen to the history of GAINAX. I believe we talked a lot about their foundation and basically what they sprung out of, because the history of Nadia is one full of drama. So we're just kind of going to have to skip to Nadia. In the history of GAINAX.
In the Evangelion, when we touched on Daikon cons and the Daikon videos, GP, the toy, the plastic manufacturer, Hideki Anno's connection to all those guys, Osaka High College, all that stuff. We covered a lot of that.
So check out the Evangelion episode. It's also a very good episode with two very good guests on that episode.
If only we should have flown them in just for this one.
Are they fans of Nadia, Ian and Toby?
I'm sure they don't not like it.
I would think they would like it.
I do know that Toby's favorite GAINAX work, and I think favorite anime of all time, is Katakana.
Yes, it's very good. We'll do that for this series one day. I'm a big fan too. So
we can't do it without Toby. He will kill us.
He'll call in even if we don't ask him to. Like, why is Skype activating? This is weird. So before we start, I want to ask you, Henry, where did you first encounter Nadia?
Boy, it was a while. It was, as detailed in the Eva podcast, I was so super hyper duper into it that definitely when you're doing, going around the Evangelion web rings of the 90s, you do hear about the works they did before it. And in an age where everything's available now, you need to remember when almost nothing was available, and there was tons of uncut anime that would never come here. And so Nadia, Secret of Blue Water, I'd see it listed as this was the TV series before Evangelion that Hideki Anno worked on, and I really wanted to see it, but it wasn't available until the early 2000s on DVD and ADV, so it was years after my Evangelion fascination when I watched it. And I really enjoyed it, but I don't think I had the proper context for a lot of what it was going for. And now returning to it 15 years after I saw it then, I think I like it even more than I did then. So that was when, though I did watch the OP a million times before I ever saw the show, because that you could download on Real Player pretty easily.
Yes, and glorious whatever resolution.
If I was lucky, 240. If I was lucky.
But I think I first encountered this mainly as a footnote in reading about Evangelion. Like, oh, they also made this other thing, this other TV series. Who cares? But I really heard about this when I started reviewing DVDs in the spring of 2001. So I did that for about 4 years. And that is when Nadia was first coming out on DVD. So I reviewed all 10 of the DVDs, which I believe included the movie, which we'll talk about that later. But that is my experience, having to write 10 DVD reviews of a series with very slow pacing.
Yes.
But thankfully, it did not crush my love of Nadia. But I think what really put this on the map for me was the release of Disney's Atlantis, which made anime fans furious because there are some things in that movie that were clearly cribbed from Nadia. I mean, it's a little odd that it would just be a coincidence.
Yeah, I mean, and this is in that movie was like about 4 or 5 years after the Lion King debacle.
Yes.
Kimba and Simba.
I just looked it up now, actually. So there's we'll do a sidebar on Atlantis and Nadia, but the co-director of Atlantis, I looked up a quote, and he said, never heard of Nadia till it was mentioned in the news group. Long after we finished production, I might add. So I say you might be telling a fib, or there are lots of artists working at Disney. Maybe Mike Mignola had seen it and was a big fan. Who knows? He was doing character designs for that movie.
Yeah, it feels unlikely, and also if you want to keep working at Disney, then what you're not going to say is, "Oh, we definitely stole from it. Sue us, please." Like that's not what you're going to say. So you just plead the fifth, or you just do like I do not recall, like as so many government officials have done over time.
We'll talk all about that Disney's Atlantis and Nadia comparisons later.
I totally missed that online controversy.
Oh, it was big. I mean, if anime fans were basically enraged for a few years over that because we had I don't know, I think we were full of ourselves because anime was finally catching on in America, and we were getting a lot more people on our side, and Disney was the big dog trying to steal from us, man.
Not that, Blue Water is an entirely original concept on its own.
I mean, they're both based on 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So I want to talk about the history of Nadia. So some basic stats about the series is that it ran for 39 episodes from April 13th, 1992, April 12th, 1991. You might be thinking, 39 episodes in 52 weeks, that sounds odd for an anime series. Well, you're right, because that is very odd. Usually they don't stop. Maybe for the New Year's episode, they will stop or do a clip show.
Or Golden Week, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe.
But that is it. So yes, this is a series that was plagued with production problems. And so it all begins truly with the prestige anime series World Masterpiece Theater, which ran from 1969 to 1997 with a brief reboot in the aughts. And this is where the Studio Ghibli founders Hayao Miyazaki and Isao Takahata first rose to prominence within the anime industry. They had done stuff before that, but they were starting to get recognized for their work via that series.
Yeah, that was a huge thing for them. We talked a little about it in the Kiki's one that's on the Patreon for Kiki's Delivery Service. But yeah, the Nippon Animation was the production company. They just hit it so big with all these Euro style adaptations, and that would usually run for a whole year. And then the next year they'd launch a new one, and it would be like some of the highest rated television in Japan in the 70s was that stuff. Like I think people, I said it then, I think people stateside don't really understand for the Japanese audience that Ghibli films are made for first. They are pitching it to people who remember them as the guys who made the wholesome anime series of their childhoods, and now they're making films.
So for 30 years, it ran, the series would run 52 episodes a year with a new story every year. And they were involved with, Heidi, Girl of the Alps, and Dog of Flanders.
Ooh, Dog of Flanders, what a bummer town. And also Anne of Green Gables, if you're one of those English lit nerds who grew up loving Anne of Green Gables, I think you'll really enjoy the Miyazaki and Takahata's adaptation of that. The first 2 episodes, they, no joke, spend 25 minutes riding a cart from one location to the other.
But it looks glorious.
It moves so
You've
slow.
never seen a cart move so fluidly in your life. So, so this ran for 30 years, and it was so popular that many other unrelated series tried to steal some of their fire. Like, we could make a European-style show that's very serious and prestige. And one of those shows, this is sort of a tangent, but one of the shows was one of Nickelodeon's first animated shows, Belle and Sebastian. So that was a copycat of the World Masterpiece Theater that Nickelodeon brought over and dubbed themselves, and that was their first animated show. I recommend you go online first subscribe to the channel Pop Arena and watch his video about Belle and Sebastian. He talks all about where it came from and how Nickelodeon basically used it as part of their attempt to broadcast things from all over the world to children.
Yeah, and it alongside Danger Mouse was their first.
Oh, that's the bad example.
Programming.
There's a video about Danger Mouse too. Sorry.
When I was a child, I liked Danger Mouse more than Belle and Sebastian. Though I did really love Belle and Sebastian. I think that was it's right there as one of the first animes I watched. I don't know if it was that or Voltron first, but there was just something about it. I mean, I think they made small cuts, but the shows were made for a child audience in Japan too, so it's not like there was like a ton of blood or violence in it. And Belle and Sebastian, I really did love as a kid how special it felt because everything in America is made to rerun endlessly, but the programming of that type, the World Masterpiece Theater and its imitators, it's made to be watched in 1 year with a slow-paced but moving forward story that has a beginning and an end. And so when I watched Belle and Sebastian and I realized an episode was the last episode and then the next day was the first episode again, I think it was the first finality I ever got in something.
They didn't want kids to feel that. They wanted you to watch forever with no end.
You're much more engaged in watching ads for Guess Who or whatever if you're continually watching reruns.
So yes, this all might sound unrelated, but it actually relates to Nadia in a huge way. So once again, Hayao Miyazaki, who was a big player in World Masterpiece Theater, this entire story relates to the history between Hayao Miyazaki and Hideaki Anno, the creator of Evangelion and the series director of Nadia. Most likely based on his work on World Masterpiece Theater in the late 70s, Miyazaki was hired by Toho to develop an adaptation of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And in this adaptation, 2 orphan children would team up with Captain Nemo and his submarine, the Nautilus, to fight villains.
I mean, that is perfection of a story of an adaptation in the World Masterpiece style, because they kind of went through all their ones that starred orphan children having adventures, that they kept having to like make up more orphan children. And definitely an orphan child, usually with some sort of animal pet, is the main character of these, starting with Heidi. And yeah, Miyazaki, it's where he made his bones. And I can see why they'd want to hire him for that. I think too, though, by this point, Miyazaki was kind of done with television on that scale. Like his last TV show was 5 episodes of Sherlock Hound, 6 episodes of Sherlock Hound.
Oh, but they look so good.
It's gorgeous, gorgeous. Watch them they're all on YouTube. We'll give them a watch. But right before that was another show I'd love to do someday, Future Boy Conan.
Yes.
Which has more than a little stylistically similar with this too. And
that relates to this.
Pacing.
That definitely relates to this. So this was never produced by Toho, but they retained the rights to the concept. So meanwhile, Miyazaki would borrow ideas he developed for this project to use in things like Future Boy Conan, which we talked about, and the movie Castle in the Sky, which also has fun bandit villains just like in Nadia.
Yeah. No, I mean, and also a magical girl, well, not magical, but an orphan girl with a magic necklace meets a boy who likes airplanes. Like, I mean, let alone that Grandis and her couple of dorks are pretty similar to the Sky Pirate trio at the start of that movie. And they even befriend each other, just like in Nadia. So, I mean, Miyazaki, he's one of the greatest animators of all time, I would say, but he has a habit of retelling the same stories. Sure, George Lucas would say it's like poetry, it rhymes, but
he was full of shit. We all know that.
But Future Boy Conan is really great. If you're in America anyway, you can just watch it all on YouTube. Nobody took it down. You'll never get it in America because I don't think NHK wants to license it. But
and I think only a few of the World Masterpiece Theater series were actually localized.
Yeah,
I think almost all, like a lot of them were localized for English in Asian countries, but I don't know if any of those came over here.
I know Dog of Flanders, the 70s one, got a DVD by Pioneer, but I think my guess with those is that there is a discrepancy in what one wants versus what the other country would pay. I think, Heidi of the Alps to Nippon Animation is one of their most valuable assets. Yeah. It's worth a ton in Japan, but for an American distributor, selling a children's show with great animation to adult nerds, that's not going to sell too many copies. So there's no way they can charge that much.
So you have to steal it.
Pretty much, yeah. There's also, the beloved TMS. They also did their own version of Dog of Flanders called My Petrache.
Really?
Which, if you want to see a faster version of that story done in 26 episodes of tragedy, it's really good.
Ooh.
It's really good.
Interesting.
Get your hankies out for it, though.
So going back to GAINAX, they
Yes.
were fresh off of Gunbuster, the original video animated series. And there was a seriously ugly power struggle happening within the company. Now, I don't want to bog everyone down with names or inter-company drama, but I'll try to sum up this as best as I can. So, Hiroaki Inoue is one of GAINAX's co-founders. He was in a power struggle against one of the other co-founders, Toshio Okada. And so Okada invited a man named Takeshi Sawamura to run the company. And by the way, he was later arrested in 1999 for tax fraud.
Ooh, yeah.
For GAINAX-based tax fraud.
Yeah, they really fibbed about how much money Evangelion made.
Yes, they really did. So Okada and Inoue were fighting. Okada brings in Sawamura not because it's a power move against Inoue, but because he just wants someone else in charge.
Mm-hmm.
But what he didn't know is that Inoue did not get along with Sawamura. They were like very, very not happy with each other.
It sounds like the Social Network movie, this
Yes.
kind of intercompany drama.
It might be more interesting than that. So Inoue was pissed off. He started developing projects behind GAINAX's back. And at the same time, another anime company called Project TAC was invited by NHK. So NHK is the basically Japan-owned TV network.
Yeah, like PBS for Japan.
Yeah, but with good programming.
PBS has good programming.
I think Japan spends more on programming than PBS does. PBS has to ask you for money.
Well, they are more of a... there's a little more of a social network.
Yeah, I don't think NHK is being starved by their country.
Hopefully not.
Politicians are talking about like killing Big Bird or whatever. So Project TAC was invited by NHK, the TV station, to pitch on the Nadia project, and Toho was still on board in some capacity. Again, I'm sorry, there are a lot of names involved here. So Project TAC invited GAINAX to contribute character designs and settings. So Inoue took this as a major opportunity and decided to intercept this communication and develop his own pitch in which Yoshiyuki Sadamoto and Mahiro Maeda would work on it in secret. So he had his own little secret cabal within GAINAX, working on a pitch that the rest of GAINAX didn't know about. So he's going behind the back of the company and other higher-ups to pitch on this Nadia project behind their backs. And if it got accepted, they'd all have to work on it.
Damn, that is a plot worthy of Gargoyle there. That is a mean. That's a pretty shitty thing to do, especially for like Sadamoto shouldn't be stuck in that position. Like,
no,
that's not his problem.
I mean, they might have sided with Inoue. Who knows what was going on? Again, I don't know if I said this before, but it's hard to find details about the history of Nadia because no one wants to talk about it. And also, Japanese creators are a little more reticent than Western creators to talk about all the struggles they have and who they hate.
Yeah, I know.
So, yeah.
It was always a frustration for me interviewing Japanese developers because not that American game developers are always going to give you dirt, but they'll give you a little more dirt than a Japanese producer will do. They're just, if you even ask, like, not a personal thing of like, hey, you don't like this person, right? If you just ask, what were you disappointed on in this game? Their thinking is, I think, if I say I don't like the character designs or whatever, then I'm bad-mouthing my coworker and saying he did a poor job at character designs, and I don't want to do that. We're all one team. The most they'll say is like, any problems you see with this, I take full responsibility for. It's my fault.
It's a good look, but very boring for readers and podcast listeners, unfortunately.
See, in America, we love the story of like friends turned against each other thanks to money. Success ruined them all. And everybody wants to sell their fucking book. Everyone's tell-all about it. Everybody wants to be like that Instagram lady this week who got the tell-all about her and her...
What?
Catherine Calloway, have you not heard about this?
No, I have not heard about this.
She was a popular Instagrammer who actually had a friend ghostwriting about half of her content, and then the friend quit because she wasn't getting any money, and then the friend has now written this whole story about how fucked up her friendship was, and it's a spectacular burnout going on. You can check it out.
I mean, I'm talking about a 30-year-old cartoon, but my stance on that is who gives a shit.
The kids do, and someday in the future there'll be a story about
they
a movie
should care
about
about Nadia. Damn it! I mean, so there is a lot on the record about this, and they are a little more candid than I expected about this whole thing. So what happened was, Inoue, he is pitching this project behind the back of the company, and NHK approves it. So GAINAX and Project TAC will co-produce Nadia for NHK. So I guess this is when the rest of the company finds out about it.
Because
that
they
part,
sold it.
that part is not disclosed, but at some point they would have to find out about the show they're working on. Like,
Yeah.
by the way, I just sold this show and you're all working on it. But after getting the project approved, the company realized like it would put them super into the red. Like they were not given enough money. The budget that they were being given was not enough to make 39 episodes of a TV show, or at that point, 26.
I mean, a depressing secret of the anime industry is that by and large, they are run on like sweatshop maybe is almost too extreme, but it's very poor conditions.
Yeah.
A lot of long nights, and especially for television production, it's about producing into the red and then making all the money after, usually through merchandise or CDs or maybe a film adaptation. That's always about that. And so it's about working yourself to death on no money for a year, and you hope that it hits it so big that you won't have to kill yourself next time. And it's still sadly a case today of just like people in the anime industry are very overworked and often feel very exploited. I read a great Twitter thread from a woman who was working in the anime industry, and she said that she felt less exploited moving over to video games.
Oh my
from
God.
anime. Can you believe
Yeah,
that's
so
how bad
please,
it is?
everyone out there, please pay for anime. Just pay
Yes!
for the
Yeah.
$5 a month. You get 4,000 series. It's not hard. So at a production meeting with NHK, not the first production meeting, GAINAX was there, and they basically staged a coup against Inoue. And they basically said in that meeting he would have to resign or they would leave the project. So they're all in this meeting with NHK
Wow.
and Toho. And they're
That's
like,
so humiliating.
this fucker's got to leave or we're out of this project. You must
Wow.
force him to leave
Wow.
or he has to resign.
Well, your sponsors are where the money's at. So yeah, you have to tell them like that's the only people they can get to fire. That's some real like United Labor kind of thing there too. But man, in a way, that's he kind of deserved that. I mean, all that double dealing behind the backs and like making a deal. He gets a deal that bad when that's what happens when you don't involve the rest of your team on that.
I mean, he should have been kicked out long ago based on this behavior. But what happened was the rest of GAINAX and NHK and Toho sided against Inoue, and production continued. So they were still making Nadia. They were still going to come out at a major loss, but the guy who got it approved was out of the company. The guy who ruined their lives or will ruin their lives over the course of a year is out of the company.
They're going to have to deal with it for a year, but at the very least, they got rid of him because of that. But man, that's, I forget exactly the particulars of it, but in Otaku no Video, they do a version of this kind of turmoil in the company.
When was that made? 91?
I believe that came out in 91 or 92
Yeah.
for like 10th anniversary.
It would have
of
been
GAINAX.
after this event then. Yeah.
But they don't really like bring up Nadia specifically or anything, but definitely a new guy comes in and takes over and it causes problems.
Again, sorry if this is slightly confusing. It's like a lot of names, a lot of company names, a lot of drama. But the important thing is Nadia is being made. So character designer Yoshiyuki Sadamoto was first chosen to be director. So you might know him for character designs from this and Gunbuster, Otaku no Video, and of course Evangelion. He's got a very distinct look for his characters. He was going to be director, his first series as series director. He lasted about 2 episodes, and Hideaki Anno would replace him. So Anno wasn't even supposed to be the director from the beginning.
Not even supposed to be here today.
Yeah, like he might have been intended to direct a few episodes or like a third of the episodes, who knows, but he was not intended to be the series director.
I mean, at this point in Anno's career, he was, this amazing animator who could do great technical work. And he had worked as like, a sequence director on big projects or a full episode director on Gunbuster. But he never worked on TV to that extent before.
Yeah.
And that is very, it's just a different beast. Like I doubt anybody who worked on Royal Space Force would say it was easy, but it's a different animal than producing a weekly television show.
You're totally right. And the important context is this is their first TV show, and they're used to working on much smaller projects or more tight-knit projects, and that everyone you're working with. Nothing's being outsourced. There's not companies sending you scripts and making changes and giving you notes. It's all like within one bubble.
Yeah, they were basically a collective of college otaku who were the best animators that they knew, and they just had this kind of startup mentality, really, I guess, if you were to compare it to a modern context. and they just sold all these things that were their ideas when the bubble was growing and growing in Japan. But by 89, or 88, I guess this might be, like, that situation's a bit different and they're having to get more approval on stuff, especially not for, like, OVAs that also, I guess too, for GAINAX, on a show like Nadia, they have to make something with a way wider appeal than the otaku stuff that we love them for.
So the aftermath of all of this is that Nadia was a disaster for GAINAX, not so much for NHK. It was a popular show. It put GAINAX 80 million yen into debt. They retain no rights to any of the property, but the silver lining to this is that for some reason, GAINAX was granted the right to make their own video game and publish it.
Yeah.
So they made a video game for the Sharp X68000 microcomputer, and based on that, it made them record profits. But apparently not enough to bounce back from the debt the series put them in.
I always forget that GAINAX is also a game company.
Yeah.
Like Princess Maker was their big hit series as their cash cow.
And there are playthroughs of this game on YouTube. It looks like a very pretty Japanese adventure games, like menu-based adventure game.
Check that out.
Yes.
That is... I mean, they should have fired that Inoue guy just for getting a deal that's like, oh, you have no rights to it. You get no merch, nothing. Like, how do you ever make your money back from that kind of deal?
I think it might have been a pride issue that they didn't back away from the deal entirely. Like, in principle, if I was at that company, I would have said, we cannot do this. This will destroy the company. We are losing money. We will never make money off of this. But I think in their minds, they're like, we agreed to this.
Yeah.
So we need to have something to, we need to stick to this in some way.
Well, and also, I guess, too, if they had just backed out of a deal with Toho and NHK, good luck making it. How do they make a deal with anybody else after that?
That's burning way too many bridges.
Yeah.
So, they didn't pay back their Nadia debt based on the video game. So after Nadia's TV run, Group TAC, which we remember they co-produced Nadia with GAINAX, they contacted GAINAX to make a movie based on Nadia, and GAINAX agreed. But they dropped out after spending $30 million of the $50 million yen advance they were given to start production on the movie. So they started work on it, but then Anno was like, fuck this, I hate this, I'm depressed, get away from me. So not until Evangelion could they pay back their Nadia debt and that debt they owed Group TAC from the advance on the movie they spent, which they didn't make.
Wow.
Yes. Again, this is very complicated.
That much money that it took them making the most successful anime television series of the 90s. It took them making that to pay off that debt.
Yes, they only had to make the most important thing ever in one decade to pay back their debt.
Oh, God. Nadia is just this, like, this monster on their back forever. Like, I can see why they don't look back on it with any kind of happiness.
Yeah, it's very hard to find interviews about this. It's very hard to find, just any kind of reflections on this. No one's really writing about it from within the company. It was a very hard time for all of them, especially Anno, because it drove him into a 4-year depression that he's very open about. But that depression got us anime gold. Yeah. So hooray for depression, everybody.
In my research, it was this, and then I think too he for Grave of the Fireflies he animated a very well drawn destruction of a real life battleship from World War II, and just him understanding what he was drawing and animating so well, like that also made him very depressed.
Oh, I forgot about that totally. Yeah,
that was in the Eva research, but like because he still would do like freelance animating on the side when he had time. He definitely didn't have time during Nadia, but in between those things, he'd do it just, or also as like a favor. It's just, he's an animator. He can't stop. That is part of his unhappiness, I would say, is his workaholism.
You draw into the grave.
But he seems happier now. He's got a wife. He's
in fun commercials. He's making Godzilla movies.
Yeah. Oh, that Godzilla. I finally watched that. That was so good. Listeners, I'm sorry I let you down by not having watched it before we saw Evangelion.
I still haven't watched it, but I'm going to. I swear. So I have just a few quotes about the production of this series from people within GAINAX who were working on it at the time. So Takami Akai, one of GAINAX's employees, talks about the scripts and the process of getting the show made. He says, originally NHK would send them the script saying this is how exactly they want it done. The director, Mr. Anno, what he would do was take the facts, staple it, and then throw it in the garbage. For some strange reason, every single week they would still get the scripts. Even if they weren't making the show based on the scripts they were sent. They would still get them though.
Wow. I would feel like 4 weeks in, you stop sending those scripts, or like, I guess once it's on TV, you can't stop airing it. So, I mean, that's wildly unprofessional of Ano, but it probably made it for a better show.
Yeah, I guess maybe NHK was thinking maybe you'll follow this, but we can't stop you because we need to keep airing the show.
Well, also Ano, I don't know how much really that carries in a meeting room, but Ano was like the Miyazaki approved wunderkind, like, so there might have been a certain level of trust there of like, well, it is Hideaki Anno, he's supposed to be the next Miyazaki, like let's trust his guidance a little. Though then again, maybe that I'm underestimating how micromanaging people are on a Japanese production, even for someone of Anno's stature.
So I have one quote from Okada, who you remember is Inoue's bitter enemy.
Yes.
He said, "Screenplays and storyboards got changed when people went home. And the next morning, if no one could find the original, I authorized them to go ahead with the changes. Whoa. No one can be a real director or a real scriptwriter in such a chaotic situation." And he said previous situations they worked in were chaotic, but it was controlled chaos. In this case, it was uncontrolled chaos, and it led to a lot of production problems. In fact, in this episode that we're doing today, I noticed one weird thing in the episode that I think might be due to a storyboard revision or some sort of change along the process that was not like instituted. There's a weird thing that doesn't, I don't know, we'll talk about it when we get to it, but there's something in this episode that makes me think, oh, they must have changed that or didn't change it or something must have happened along the way.
And again, it's a scale issue too, of I would think, compared to a production on like a 3-episode OVA, where also you get kind of a break in between and can just reset. When it's week to week, continuity issues really add up a lot faster, and especially if you have to get to a certain point by the end of this. There's no delay till next season or whatever.
Yeah,
you have a guide map. If you don't follow it, you're gonna have a bad time.
Like I said earlier, there were 39 episodes in 52 weeks, and I was looking at the air dates. In some cases, there are 2 to 3 week gaps between episodes. So at a certain point, they were like, we can't deliver this. We have to, work on it more. So, which is very, very rare for anime. So there's one infamous thing about the series, aside from the movie, that is the Hated Island arc.
Yeah.
So episodes 23 to 34, basically the characters just crash on an island and have fun slapstick adventures on that island before getting off the island to go back to the story. And the reason that was done was twofold. One was to give Anno a chance to catch up and, maybe chill out a little bit. Another reason was that because the series was very popular, they just wanted more episodes. So one person from GAINAX, Shinji Higuchi, who is a very well-talented animator and director.
The namesake of Shinji Hikari.
Oh, really? Interesting. So he was basically doing those episodes, and they were being outsourced to Korea.
Well, I mean, that still makes it like... when I'd first heard about the island episodes and warned off of them on the internet, though very vaguely, I thought they were just wholly original episodes produced completely outside of GAINAX. But to know that Shinji worked on it, was overseeing it, that's still GAINAX, though. Definitely there's a bit of pride, I think, of in Japan of not using Korean animation or seeing Korean animation as lesser.
Yeah, I think that's all changed now, though.
Yeah, but back then that definitely was kind of the cheaper way to go. I mean, that's why most American animation production in the 80s was done through Korea and not Japan. And the ones that were well animated mostly were the ones out of Japan that we got to see, like DuckTales. And also though, when I got to this episode in my original DVD watching, and they got to an island, I was like, "Is this the island arc already? It came that soon."
Wow! If it did, what a bummer. But yeah, I will say you can't skip those episodes. But they are also very fun, well animated, and they are good character studies. It's like it doesn't move the plot anywhere, but if you like the characters and how they interact, it's just a new location to tell stories about them. But absolutely nothing happens with the plot.
I think it's a little harsh for folks to really say like, tell me how I skip these and if I missed anything. But I guess though, Nadia. I like that they took the time with the characters, but Nadia, in its normal pacing in the rest of the episodes, is very much the World Masterpiece Theater thing of like, we got to go to a new chapter in the book and move this overarching plot forward. So if you press pause on that, it really just upsets the entire style of the show.
Yeah, even though the pacing is kind of slow compared to modern storytelling in anime, you are always moving forward. But when you get to the island, it's just like, well, what's going to happen now? Like, what about all the things that are happening outside the island that are much more important than like having a pig chariot race or whatever, or singing songs?
At least in Dragon Ball, they'll fight Garlic Jr. or something, and you get like a fight that acts like it means something when it really doesn't.
There's no like boss on the level for them to attack or whatever. But yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about Disney's Atlantis because that put it on the map for me, and it made me want to watch Nadia because those bastards at Disney ripping off anime once again. So originally NHK contacted GAINAX when Disney's Atlantis was a known entity, but GAINAX basically shrugged and they said basically, even if they rip Nadia off, we don't own it. We can't do anything about it. It's not our thing. So it's weird that NHK, who owned Nadia, was like, hey, GAINAX, get a load of this. They're like, it's your series. Do something about it.
Man, what if the Japanese government sued Disney over that? That would be amazing.
Would have been awesome. So I'll tell you what Hiroyuki Yamaga said. He's another GAINAX co-founder. There's like 8 people who founded GAINAX, by the way. So he said, we actually tried to get NHK to pick a fight with Disney. But even the National Television Network of Japan didn't dare to mess with Disney and their lawyers. What we said to them was, this really had nothing to do with us, but if it did, we would definitely take them to court. Of course, it is all a lie. We actually did say that, but we wouldn't actually take them to court. We would be so terrified about what they would do to them in return that we wouldn't dare. So the power of Disney is terrifying even in Japan.
I mean, even if you're rich enough to afford a 5-year-long lawsuit with Disney over this, you could be destroyed by them, or they'll just I mean, Disney is they make a lot of money in Japan too. I think they'd be pretty punitive against you if you tried to say they ripped you off.
They have more powerful lawyers than Scientology, I will say. Or they share the same lawyers as Scientology.
Probably a lot of the same people. Yeah, the most terrifying lawyers. And two, like if I would figure they would do the lawsuit in America. Like I don't think it would be an international law. So if they're going to argue it in America, judges are supposed to be impartial, but they pretty much side with Disney and giant corporations in most times. So it's a millions of dollars gamble to hope that a judge won't just say, it's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. You both did a thing on it. It's anybody's game.
I think that the fact that they're both based on public domain works. That would just be kicked out of court completely.
Yeah. And I mean, Disney could even do something as nasty as say like, well, you know what? We found 100 similarities between Nadia's Secret of Blue Water and our adaptation in the 50s of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. So actually you ripped us off and we own you now.
So Disney, I'm just glad they never went after anime outside of stealing from it. They don't want to own any anime. I mean, I said this on Twitter and they're like, what, don't they own Ghibli? No, they don't, sir. I say no to you. They licensed Ghibli movies for 20 years and then they were like, who cares? Then G-Kids picked it up. So they've never really went after anime. Like they never owned anime.
No, I think, for as much as they want to have all the content for streaming, they're not chasing after anime for that. And I think you would think there's at least a few that want to be bought, but I think it reminds me of Euro Disney too. I think that it's just seen as such a American thing that the idea of selling your thing to such an American cultural figurehead is seen as like you just don't want to do it. It's a negative concept, I think. And I would definitely assume, knowing what I know about Hayao Miyazaki, that he would definitely not sell to Disney.
Oh, yeah. I know they wanted to buy Ghibli, right?
I always assumed that the partnership with Ghibli was just to soften things up over a decade or so and just be like, well, okay, hey, you're about to retire again, Mr. Miyazaki, right? Didn't we have a good partnership for 10 years? Just sell us.
Sort of like the Pixar thing where Disney was partners and now they own Pixar?
I think so.
Yeah.
Disney is not in the interest of real partnerships. They are in the interest of owning
consuming.
Shit. Yeah, the all-consuming mall, like No Face in Spirited Away.
That is the Disney surrogate.
Yeah, but so I think once they realized Miyazaki and Ghibli wasn't going to sell, that they then just kind of scaled back and were releasing less and less stuff and just let G-Kids have it. And now G-Kids is being a way better steward of Ghibli content, at least in America.
No more John Lasseter prologues for us.
Yes, yeah. It's so, oh man, and the seeing Whisper of the Heart in theaters with Rebecca Sugar's intro, like she actually had amazing things to say about it that weren't just, I'm friends with Hayao Miyazaki, did you know that?
He complimented my shirt.
Ugh.
Yes,
Fuck
enough about
you.
that guy. He sucks. Let's talk about the English language releases of Nadia. So Streamline Pictures, who we all know from their amazing dub of Nausicaa, they released the first 8 episodes dubbed across how many VHS tapes, Henry? Answer this question for me.
Oh, boy. So 39 episodes, I'd say.
No. They only released the first 8.
Oh, sorry, 8. Well,
So-
then it must have been 8 VHSs.
It
right?
was. Can you
Yeah.
believe that?
The balls on them, man.
A 22-minute cartoon, or maybe
Yeah.
25 with the opening and ending.
Yeah,
One
if
per
that.
tape, 8 tapes, released under Nadia from March 92 to August of 93.
Now, look, with a 30-minute OVA, those are meant to be consumed in that way. At least, like, I'd still say minute to dollar ratio is bad there. But
Yeah.
at least with an OVA, you get a little more. But, like, these TV shows are not paced to be bang for your buck.
No, I mean they look very, very good, but they're not OVA quality where you're paying for the best animation for 30 minutes.
Man, that is so cruel. You at least give 2 per episode.
And I'm sure they're all like
Jesus
$40
Christ.
each or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
Yes, so these were later compiled by Orion Pictures as A Secret of Blue Water on 2 VHS tapes in January of 96. So Orion eventually picked up those dubs, released
little
them on
better.
2 tapes. And I will say it's funny because the first 8 episodes tell a complete story. Like the
Yeah.
story could kind of end with episode 8. This is a very oddly paced series. In which
yeah.
we can spoil a little bit of it because it's not a real spoiler because there's still like 30 more episodes. But in episode 8, the enemy of the series is apparently destroyed. They blow up his base, he escapes, but it's like, oh yeah, problem solved.
Yeah, they do all this work to set up his like freaking castle and his master plan, and then he's defeated, and they just move on with their lives.
Yeah, when I was getting the DVDs for review, I'm like, well, what happens for 30 more episodes? I don't understand.
Yeah, it confused me too when I finished I think it is like disc 2 is the end of that part. Like I think it was 4 per episode. there,
Yeah,
too,
I think 4 per DVD, or that's right. So ADV acquired the rights to Nadia in June of 99. They first started releasing them via VHS tapes as part of their fan sub program,
That's
which were
oh my God.
subtitled only VHS releases you could only buy at conventions or direct through mail order because
Yep.
they assumed the appeal would be so limited.
I remember that. It's the price was too high. I actually didn't buy those fan sub ones.
I'm sure they were like
but yeah.
$30 or something crazy like that.
Though, I got a thumbs up on at least being experimental like that. Of like,
Yeah,
to
it was
have
cool.
direct online ordering of anime back then when it was really like you make the money by selling it through Suncoast Video or Best Buy, like not there,
And
not online.
They were like also not everything needs a dub, which I still agree with. You don't need to dub every Yakuza game.
Yeah,
And they stopped doing it.
Though then they did it
With Judgment,
They
yeah.
did. I think they saw with Judgment more potential.
Yeah, but I'm sure it's really good, but I can't listen to those people speak English.
Yeah, it's
They're all very Japanese-looking people in Japan.
Yeah, that's kind of the mental break I have with it too. In a lot of, I mean, I'm just a sub snob in general. Though me and you tonight are going to be seeing a dubbed anime.
Yes, but it's just so we can see all the anime without being distracted by words.
Yes, yeah, we're seeing Promare, everybody, or we did see it in the
Yes.
past. You hear this, but anyway, yeah, when I see things that fully star that is set in Tokyo's or set in Japan with Japanese people, I kind of want to hear them speak Japanese, both for games and anime. Now, oppositely with this show, I almost thought I did want to hear the dub on my
yeah.
new watch because I was like, well, it is all set in France and stars European people. Why not hear English is no less legitimate than hearing Japanese be spoken by these characters.
There are some odd choices, I will say.
Yep.
So Streamline dubbed it first. We'll hear clips from both dubs. And then ADV dubbed it. I had only heard the Streamline dub upon doing research for this podcast.
Yeah, I
So
never
the
heard it.
ADV dub, they make a major mistake. So the one thing cool they do, they were being kind of innovative in the dub space, and they were like, let's have kids play the kid characters, which is cool. It limits your talent range, I guess, and the amount of experience you can bring to the role, but it's a cool decision to make.
Well,
that
also you're
Japan
look-
never even does.
Oh yeah, they basically never do it. And I mean, though for ADV, like they're looking for non-union Texas actors
Yes,
in most
yeah.
cases, so that really limits yourself with children.
But the major issue with this is the actor for Jean, who is a fine voice actor as a child, they make him do a French accent, and it's not very good. And it's okay. So it's one thing to make a kid do an entire role like this. another thing to make him do an accent that he can't keep consistent and an accent that actually limits his range. And it's so distracting where you're like, that vowel's wrong. You said that thing wrong. Oh, this is clearly muting your ability to be happier or sadder or angrier because you have to stay in the accent. It's so distracting and frustrating to hear this kid be forced to speak with a French accent. It drives me crazy.
When you already have the difficulty of having to match lip flaps of something recorded 15 years earlier, now you also have to do it in an unnatural accent, which that would be tough for a established actor in their 20s, not a child. There's a reason like child actors, or there's a reason why people like Haley Joel Osment are so celebrated when they're kid actors, because most kid actors don't have the experience or ability to do that.
They have nothing to draw from because they're children.
Yeah,
they're stupid.
Stupid kids.
So I thought, I've heard the ADV dub. Jean, his voice is way too distracting. I wonder what's going on with the streamlined dub. Surely they would not use a French accent in their dub, correct? So you're going to hear first the streamlined dub. Nadia is played by Wendy Lee in the early 90s, and Jean is played by someone named Ardwright Chamberlair, which is surely not a non-union name. Ardwright Chamberlair. So I thought, one French accent that's pretty bad. What could Streamline do with Nadia? It can't be any worse than ADV. Here's the Streamline Pictures dub of Nadia.
I'll gain some altitude. We can circle the island once before landing.
I don't know. Maybe we should land before we get into any more trouble.
Oh, don't be like that, Nadia. I'm going to start to think you have no sense of adventure.
So that's actually the episode we're watching today.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I was like, that's the second I heard that dub, I'm like, oh man, Jean has got a French accent. And then Nadia talks. She also has a French accent.
That's not even consistent with her character. She's supposed to be a kind of as she's introduced, she's a child with no nation, and she's part of
a traveling circus.
She's supposed to feel like a nomad at least, and so her played with just a I guess kind of unaccented English in the other dub. That's way better than making her a French woman. She's not supposed to be French. Jean, at least it's like he is Frenchy McFrenchersign in his design, so I get the move, but
I say my choice would be baseline American accents across the board, and maybe if an accent could be shorthand for something, like a British accent is like sinister or more educated or the villain or whatever, make like gargoyle British accents or something, but American accents across the board. So that was the Streamline Pictures dub of Nadia. Here is the ADV dub of Nadia.
Why don't we circle around the island once and then go in for a landing?
Jean, why don't we land soon in case this engine breaks down?
Gee, girls just don't understand the true romance of flying through the sky.
Bad stuff. Yeah, and I feel bad for that kid because everyone was shitting all over him. He should not have been forced to speak in a French accent that he had no handle on. It drives me nuts.
This is why you don't cast children in dubs, too, because then these poor children actors have to face the scorn of anime fans, which is bad enough for adults to have to face that. These kids didn't ask for that.
Those poor children. So you won't be hearing any clips of the dub of Nadia, unfortunately. The sub is great, obviously. Watch the sub, and thankfully there is a 2014 Blu-ray by Sentai Filmworks. It's all collected for like $40. Get it? It looks beautiful.
It's lovely.
Yeah, it's got the ADV dub if you want to kill yourself or your ears.
Yeah, I mean, it's there. If I kind of get the kid casting as well in this kind of broad accent in the context of maybe they thought they could actually license it to Nickelodeon or something. Maybe they were kind of child-proofing it for a wider release than like Evangelion gets. Like his ADV. They were always chasing the dragon of Evangelion after that. And maybe they thought, they saw that Evangelion couldn't get on Adult Swim even because it was just too dirty, too adult for it. This one, definitely it could have been licensed to Nickelodeon, but it's just not the type of show Nick was into then either.
Yeah, and it's funny that they were releasing this on DVD alongside Evangelion for the first time on DVD.
Yeah,
so it was a nice companion show to that.
Yeah, so I had the DVD. I think I did buy the first DVD of Nadia, or maybe I did buy a couple of those tapes, but I didn't see it on DVD until I bought them when they were in those 2 big packs.
Yeah.
Of Nadia, which then I just I think I traded them in for like $1 or $2 at half price.
Sounds about
a
right.
decade ago. But that Blu-ray is amazing. It is on Verve and High Dive with the same level of quality transfers.
Oh, nice. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Which High Dive I didn't even realize existed.
Yeah, it's like the weird non-Funimation Crunchyroll Verve thing, High Dive.
Yeah. Which you can see a lot of the Sentai film releases on there which are like weird shit for me, like Dunbine and Votoms and Ideon, like all the things that is uncool.
The classy nerds.
Exactly, yeah.
So yes, please buy the Blu-ray. It's great if you want to watch the show, and also it's on High Dive. And so there is a movie. I won't talk a lot about it. I had to watch this piece of shit for my review job.
Oh, see, I never even touched it. I just heard too many bad things about it.
The movie is called The Secret of Fuzzy, believe it or not.
Ooh.
And I went back and I read my review because I was not going to look up any more information about this. And in my review, I said the best part of the movie is when like Nadia is sent out. She's working on a ship or something like that. And she's sent out to get coffee for her boss. I think she's working for a newspaper. Who cares? Anyways, she sent out to get coffee. She sent out to get coffee from her boss. She's walking to get coffee, and she sees a picture of a circus, and that flashes us back into a 30-minute wrap up of the entire series. So she sees a picture of a circus, like I remember the circus, and then we see the entire series basically summed up with clips.
So a clip show. It
Yeah.
starts a 30-minute clip show.
One act is a clip show. That's the best part of the movie, actually.
That saves you some money too. But man, God, if I saw TV show clips in a movie theater when I paid for a Nadia movie, I'd be pretty pissed.
To be fair, Japan was used to that, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Like
That's
you would
true.
pay to see the isn't the Death movie just the TV clips with a framing device?
But reformatted for widescreen.
Ooh.
At least it is done for that. Yes, yeah, I know. It's
Go on.
well, there's a reason I tell people you don't really need to watch Death on Netflix. I mean, it's
I like the framing device, but
it's great, yeah.
it's so brief. I like them all coming with their instruments.
well, and also too, it's the Death at least offered. They redid some stuff from the last from episodes 20 through 24. They reanimated some things. But even in that case, like those got integrated into the television versions of the original show.
Yeah.
So those new scenes aren't even new to you.
It's what we're seeing now on Netflix.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm glad I never touched that movie. I mean, once I heard that GAINAX had virtually nothing to do with it, I was like, well, then why do I want to see this?
It's notably a piece of crap that I've seen no one defend. But yeah, that's basically the history of Nadia. Anything else we need to hit? I mean, it's strange that GAINAX, as pure uncut GAINAX, only made like 2.5 TV series. I mean, so Anno only made 2.5. So he did Nadia, he did Evangelion, and he did like part of Karekano before getting fired. Or leaving.
Yeah.
I forget what happened.
And I think GAINAX's big farewell to TV was Gurren Lagann, which that also gave them a lot of problems, I think, too, and led to them getting a giant brain drain after that cartoon was over, too. Yeah, returning to Nadia, I actually like it more as I get older because the pacing is glacial, I know. But
it's very slow, yeah.
But it's something I actually kind of like now. Like, I really like taking... It feels like a novel adaptation in that way. Like, we're so used to... an American film adapting a classic novel. They always are just like, we got to speed this up. It moves too slow. Like, we got to cut this for time. But with the long, 26 to 52 episode orders you get on these old shows, they go page by page in some cases. And they're just like, no, let's luxuriate in that. Something about that is appealing to me.
There are like 3 episodes in the first 8 where they get rescued by a boat and are just in the boat for an entire episode talking to people.
But it also, maybe I also like it because it's so anti-binge. Like, this is not, when you try to binge this show, the pacing really kind of gets to you. You're like, I watched 4 episodes in a row and it feels like nothing happened.
Yeah,
like,
I've been watching 1 per lunch. That's what looking at for me so far.
It's better for that. And lastly, a thing I really like about it now, the more I know about its background and context, like, I really like seeing, like, Miyazaki's, like, Francophile style put through the Anno machine.
It's Miyazaki through the Anno lens, which is weird.
Yeah, and you have...
Yeah.
And plus with, Certainly not as much as in other GAINAX things, but there's a little bit of postmodernism to it as well, particularly the Grandest characters.
Oh, yeah.
So similar to the Time Bokan characters, aka Team Rocket, that then it's all about undercutting your expectations after 4 episodes of them being the silly Team Rocket guys.
Yeah.
I like stuff like that. And same with like, Nemo's arc. And I think too, though, it's funny that Miyazaki, all this plane stuff is so Miyazaki, but then once they get on the Nautilus, that's like Anno going, I want Star Trek. This is Star Trek.
Oh,
now.
for sure. 100%. Yes. So we'll take a brief break and come back with the Nadia episode, Marie's Island.
弱気な人は嫌い青空裏になない夢見る前に私飛んで行きたい心のオルゴールが開いてく響いてく少しずつの幸せ勇気を奏で出すの今君の目にいっぱいの未来言葉は永遠のシグナル Don't forget to try mine 愛はジュエルより全てを輝かす
Grandma, Mama says you have a secret about when you were a little girl.
She does.
Do you?
I had a secret.
Mom says I'm old enough to know it.
You think you're old enough?
I think so. Tell me, Grandma. Please tell it to me.
So you want to hear everything, do you? All right. Sit down.
Do you want to know the secret?
Hey, everybody. Thanks for sticking around for the break for the What a Cartoon episode for Nadia, The Secret of Blue Water. I am one of your hosts for this one, the French boy full of imagination, Bob Mackey.
And,
Bonjour!
Bonjour. Hey, I'm Henry, though when I wear this mask, call me Electra.
We want to tell you how to support our network and get a ton of great things on top of that. So, of course, we're part of the Talking Simpsons Network. It's all the shows that we do. And if you sign up for the low price of $5 a month at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons, you will have access to more than 100 podcasts you have never heard before in your life, sir or madam. And that includes all of our mini-series like Talking Futurama, Talk King of the Hill, Talking Critic, and coming soon, Talking Futurama Season 2 is coming in October of 2019. So you're going to want to stick around for that.
Oh, yeah.
And we also have many things on top of that at the $5 level that you will unlock immediately. All the things that we've done for the past 2+ years of the Patreon, including interviews, end-of-season wrap-ups, community podcasts, and so much more. And Henry, we have mega huge podcasts coming to you every month at the $10 a month patron level. And I just edited the longest podcast we have ever done at 4 hours and 20 minutes, available only to $10 patrons.
Yes, those What a Cartoon movie podcasts we do are like the effort of basically 3 podcasts in a single podcast. We work so hard on them. Bob had quite a weekend working on them. But yes, we want to give you the best value for your money. If you become a $10 Patreon subscriber, you get all that $5 stuff plus our monthly What a Cartoon movie, where we do a feature-length film in the same style as we do animated series on this podcast. This month, if you really enjoyed our Nadia talk about anime, then I think you're really going to love our 4 hours and 22 minutes of conversation about Cowboy Bebop, the movie, a.k.a. Cowboy Bebop Knockin' on Heaven's Door. Plus, we've done so many, it's too many to list of all of our previous What a Cartoon movies. But if you're a big anime fan who enjoys this episode of Nadia, then you're definitely going to want to sign up at the $10 level to hear our backlog of What a Cartoon Movie podcasts of Akira and Kiki's Delivery Service. And also, I mean, there's tons of other great ones like A Goofy Movie, Batman Mask of the Phantasm, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Aladdin, The Secret of Nim. I am just naming them all, but you'll love all of them. And that's over probably 30 hours of exclusive podcasts that you'd get right now. And in October, we're getting a little scary because we're going to be doing A Nightmare Before Christmas. That is our What a Cartoon Movie. And you can only hear that if you are a $10 and up Patreon subscriber at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
Thank you so much for sitting through the break. We'll let you get back to Nadia, The Secret of Blue Water, and the episode Marie's Island. So we're back with Marie's Island, and the reason that I chose this episode, it's when the series truly begins, and I think shit gets real for all the characters. Like, before this episode, it's a very happy-go-lucky series full of antics and, you know, fun bandits chasing these two children all across the world, but here is where the villain is established and the stakes are raised dramatically.
Oh, yeah, and you meet basically the rest of the cast, too,
Yes.
by this point. Yeah, the first 4 episodes are such an interesting trick, I guess, really, because it does feel like a regular kids adventure show.
Yeah.
You have these lead characters that are just on this constant quest, and each episode they're going to meet a new group of goofballs. And yeah.
I'll just give everyone out there listening a brief synopsis. So in Nadia, it's 1889. Jean is a French boy with a fascination for flying, and Nadia is a captive circus girl with her baby Lion King. And so Jean sees her, immediately falls in love, and as he's falling in love with Nadia, the Grandest Gang, a group of 3 silly bandits, want her pendant. And so in episode 1, they chase after her, they get away. Episode 2, they chase after her and Jean, they get away. In episode 3, they're saved by an American battleship. The ship is hit by a torpedo. In episode 4, they're saved by the submarine Nautilus and the enigmatic Captain Nemo, which I believe is Nemo, but in Japanese they say Nemo.
Yeah,
and,
I'm just going to stick with that.
Yeah, and episode 5 starts out with them being set free from the ship to go pursue their quest to find Nadia's homeland. So, yeah, episodes 1 and 2, they're escaping from the Grandest Gang. Episode 3, they get rescued by an American battleship. 4, rescued by Nautilus. 5, they're set free. So in every episode you think like, well, in every episode there'll be like a fun villain at the end, and then they'll just move further on their quest.
Yeah, they're going to land on this island, have some encounter on this island, and then move to the next place they're going to go to. Especially like episode 4 ends with them being gifted a plane that's so cool looking that you're like, well, this is the plane they'll use to travel from location to location. They're all set up.
It lasts about 5 minutes.
Yeah, that plane doesn't last. I also, in episode 3, man, I do always laugh how they shit on American like militarism.
Yeah, it's
I always
funny.
love that. Though Jean loves it, and then meanwhile, Nadia's like, you know, these guns kill people, right?
Nadia's vegetarian too. So some background info on the characters. Jean and Nadia are both orphans. A lot of orphans in this series.
Simplifies things.
Nadia has like some sort of amnesia, I believe, doesn't know what her home country is. And Jean's parents were apparently lost at sea. And there's rumors of a sea serpent sinking ships.
Ooh, I'm
I
surprised.
got through that.
was
I got
good.
through that in the Atlantic.
Which, you know, earlier in the show, you think you're being set up for a mystical show, a magical mystical show. Though, I mean, I guess maybe not too much, because if you watch the opening, you know that's a sub. You're seeing submarines.
It's way more of it turns into way more of a sci-fi show, actually, as things go on.
yeah.
Like you said, Star Trek-y.
Yeah, I mean that is what Ano and the GAINAX otaku, they love sci-fi mechanism. I mean the when mechanical stuff, like in episode 4, when they're first on the Nautilus, you see so much care just in all of the servos opening, or just like here's how the water all drains out.
Just like in Evangelion, all the care you see when doors are opening and shafts are opening up and things are being turned around like the Evas. Yeah.
I think that's why Jean is such a nerd, because, you know, Miyazaki has a very specific type of boy lead that he does in things, which is just like a strong-backed, earnest kid who works hard and believes in his friends. What he isn't is a nerd who wears glasses and builds stuff. That's not what most like. Miyazaki made a big deal that in Howl's Moving Castle, the male lead in it was a pretty boy, a Bishonen, because he never does those types of guys. And so I think probably Jean in Miyazaki's version was a much less dorky guy who's like,
Yeah.
oh, I love tinkering my toy.
Though I see a lot in common with him and Tombo from Kiki's Delivery Service.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Tombo and Kiki are essentially Jean and Nadia in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's weird that this has a lot in common with Kiki's Delivery Service when it predates that by about 6 months, 7 months.
Yeah, you're right. Tombo is very similar to old Jean there, except no French accent. They mixed up there. And also in the case of Nadia and Kiki, they're both cool, mysterious girls with short hair who eventually warm up to a nerd.
Have no time for that nerd shit.
At first, they're like, oh, I don't like this nerd. And then slowly they become friends.
Nadia is pretty harsh to Jean, but he seems pretty annoying.
She's had a hard life,
Yeah.
too. Also, yeah, in episode 1, I really did want to be like, take a fucking hint, Jean.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't want you.
He's a little too pushy, but he's got a real Urkel energy to him,
Oh,
I guess.
yeah.
At the beginning of this episode, Jean and Nadia are leaving Nemo's ship on a newly converted seaplane. And we see from this little scene that Jean is the more romantic one and Nadia is the more practical one. Like, Jean's like, we're finally flying. He's never landed a plane before, unfortunately, but he wants to circle the island just for fun because flying is so great. And Nadia's like, no, land the plane immediately.
Well, and he's got a super souped-up seaplane that can even just land on water. So this should be no problem for them, which feels more like they're setting up a funny landing gag, which will be completely interrupted later.
Yeah.
But
There will be no wacky landing for these two. Three.
I do love. There was one bit I wanted to mention about the opening that I love, just the opening song.
Oh, yeah.
Just like I realized that the descriptors in the opening song of like I don't like timid people, and then I don't want to die without seeing the blue sky. Like those are said while Nadia is on screen and then while Jean is on screen. They're
it's like
descriptors. for
every
them.
character's sort of mission statement, I guess.
Yeah, and whenever I hear the Japanese word shiawase, I
Yeah.
always think of the flashes of characters when that word comes up in the OP.
I don't know what "Don't Forget to Try and Mind" means, but I sing it all the time in my apartment now.
Oh yeah,
my
it's a lot of
parrot.
fun. Yeah, they say "jewel" is like 4 syllables in it. It's hard to sing that part.
You could
of
do it. Let's do it at karaoke next time.
Yes, if it's there, if we're lucky.
It'll be there. If the Berserk theme was there, Nadia's theme would
I
be
don't
there.
know. It's not as I could count on Cruel Angel Thesis being there, but I don't know.
We'll see. So the Grandis gang we talked about. So Grandis gang is basically Senorita Grandis, who is essentially Jessie from Team Rocket, just like a very haughty, aristocratic bandit villain. And she has 2 sidekicks, Sanson and Hanson. Sanson is a very handsome man, and Hanson is a chubby guy who's like the mechanic, the brains of the operation almost. And sort of like, so if you want to think of Team Rocket, Grandis is Jesse, Sanson is James, and Hanson is Meowth. They
Totally.
basically have all those roles.
100%. But part of the fun of the show is learning their deeper character motivations.
Yeah,
But-
they're established as real wacky town citizens, but
Yeah, and I mean this trio of dorks is a well-worn character trait in anime, but I like that you're already starting to see a bit of like, well, Sanson doesn't really have much time for Grandis's bullshit, while Hanson is just obsessed with his toy model, basically. Like there's definitely a bit of otaku culture in how he's like, oh, I built up my robot so much, I'm so proud of it.
he is like the little nerd boy from Evangelion.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Though Grandis, she fits so much of the anime stereotype of the unmarriable hot lady.
Yeah.
Which I just saw a ton of that in the Fire Emblem Three Houses video game. There's one of those waifus in there as well, and it does. I mean, it's I don't necessarily think it is intended as like angrily sexist, but at its core, it is kind of a sexist stereotype of just like, look at this hot babe. too bad she is an unmarriable bitch. Like
She's
she can't
kind of-
clean up after herself,
Yeah.
gets drunk all the time. Ugh.
She's kind of man hungry too.
Yeah, which is to be shameful.
Yes.
That is a shameful thing to do.
It's deplorable.
And I mean, she's unmarried at 28, which I already feel like looking down my anime nose at her for doing that.
So there are a lot of coincidences on this episode that you just have to kind of buy.
Yeah.
And I think they even wink at you. It's like, for some reason, every character that will be happening on the rest of the show are just meeting on this island. And just because the fates have aligned or something like that.
You know, in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, they eventually make up a reason why all these characters with superpowers run into each other. They say, like, oh, stands are attracted to one another, so we just kind of are magnetized to one another.
Plot magnets.
Yeah. And speaking of sexes too, Jean is all like, "Oh, women have no sense of adventure." Like, fuck you, Jean.
Yeah. Well, Jean's living in the late 19th century, so
That's true. You know what? He's actually pretty advanced for a man in 1889.
for thinking a woman is a human being.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they really do nod to how coincidental all of this is, because Grandis, Sanson, and Hanson are just kind of lounging about saying, "No, when will we get off this island? When will we find the blue water?" And basically, that's when Nadia and Jean's plane flies above them. So I think this is the writer saying, yeah, this is kind of contrived, isn't it? Like, the second they ask, like, when will we find the thing we want? It's right in front of them.
You're just waiting to hear the plane noise. They almost look in the camera. That's one of my favorite moments with Grandis gang, where they just go like, we were just kidding, or like they sort of know they're in an anime series.
And I mean, even Nadia like shivers, like, I got a bad feeling, because they know she knows they were talking about her. So
I was expecting her to sneeze.
Yeah.
The old anime sneeze scene transition.
you got to shiver. They subverted it. But yes, Jean is still, attempting to land the plane. We see that there is a big hollowed-out crater on this island, probably used for mining. And this is when they're shot out of the sky, but not by the Grandis gang. So there is a new villain or a new enemy on the horizon here.
That giant mortar or whatever just flies through the sky and then upsets all your expectations for the show. It's a really pivotal moment in the series.
It's a great subversion, because you think this is going to be more Wacky Town adventures with Jean and Nadia versus Grandis.
Yeah, Grandis just saw them, so you think like, wow, that has to be shot at them by the goofy tank, and they're going to try to capture them with non-lethal stuff, because the Grandis gang are goofers, and they definitely are not non-violent.
They definitely fire guns at Jean and Nadia.
Yes, but they don't really want to kill them.
No, they want that damn Pikachu, right?
Yeah, they want Pikachu, that Pikachu around her neck.
Yeah, it's true. So it's funny that, when they get shot out of the sky, you think it was the Grandis gang. Like, holy shit, did they just fire a cannon at Jean and Nadia? But really, they're watching this all happen. And the plane goes down, and Grandis is like, we need to find the blue water. But when pressed, we find out she really wants to, save Nadia. So they're like, oh, she's soft-hearted.
Yeah, I do like that little moment there of letting the audience know, like, she kind of does care, like, in a metatextual way. This is the villain of a silly kid show going like, shit, I can't. They just killed off my nemesis. We gotta make sure they're not dead.
I like how things get real for both the villains and the heroes in the series. This is when everything changes, and the heroes and villains alike are like, oh shit, what now?
Though I do like the comedy of her throwing the binoculars at Senson, but he pulls Hanson in the way to take it. That's very funny.
That's after he got hit in the face with a wine bottle.
Yes, yeah. As he kept going like, I wonder. Like he's got no time for Grandis.
So yes, the plane crashes. Nadia is the first one to come to. King and Jean are gone. By the way, King is her baby line. You always see his testicles, and some people have a problem with that. I'm saying, why don't we draw more testicles on animals in cartoons?
Well, it's just like a thing your eye is drawn to at first.
Yeah.
I think once you get used to it, you're just like, they're just there. Like
Yeah.
it's like in real life. Are you always staring at your cat's butthole just because you can see it? Like,
Yeah,
you
why
get
aren't we
used
drawing
to
the
it.
butthole? I swear. It's there. Let's not be ashamed of it.
Other cartoons would just draw the beehole on it. I think the cute animal sidekick and Gurren Lagann, they draw the little X beehole on it, don't
Yeah,
they?
it's nice shorthand for anus. So the Grandis gang goes out to investigate the wreckage because they think, Jean and Nadia are dead. This is very sad, but we could get that crystal that we want.
Yeah, they do go like, man.
Yeah, they
It's sweet.
cross do the sign of the cross and everything. Then this is when they're confronted by the new enemies of the show, these guys who are sort of like more flamboyantly dressed clan members in creepy masks with guns. They're holding guns.
Yeah, it's pretty extreme. The second you see these characters, you know they're bad news. Like, and Jean also, I think right before they crash, he says something like, "Not even a warning. They just shot at us. Like these are killers. They like the Americans in the 2 episodes ago." The American battleship made a point of shooting warning shots. They were all about warning shots to give someone a chance, like not just to straight up kill them.
And they rescued John and Nadia in episode 3. They didn't shoot at them.
Oh yeah. And same once the Grandis gang gave up, they're just like, all right, take them alive. Like they didn't explode them as they easily could have.
So they eventually all, come to and leave the wreckage, and they're basically looking around for what's going on this island. And so King is still missing, the lion cub king. So they're looking for him.
They need to have King away. No comedy antics right now. No.
They'll happen again fairly soon. But when looking for King, Jean and Nadia come across the dead bodies of a family and their dog. And upon further investigation, they've all been shot to death. And, previously as viewers, we saw the Grandis gang being taken hostage by these people with guns. You could put it together in your head what happened here.
Yeah. And again, to this point, nobody's died on screen. There's been no corpses in the show, no blood. Like, it's played more real than like a cartoonist blasting off into the sky or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's definitely played on a lighter kids level. Then all of a sudden, characters just turn a corner. Your beloved main characters turn a corner like, these are corpses. There's blood on my hand.
Yeah.
They even killed the dog.
They shot that dog dead.
That's harsh.
The ultimate things are getting real moment is when Jean is investigating the body and he pulls his hand up and there's like blood on his hand. We see a nice shot of him looking at his bloody hand like, oh God, no.
Shit's just got real.
Yeah, it's a real shit gets real moment for the series. So, and apparently a little girl was shot to death too. So this is a family series that I wonder if anyone, I think Streamline might have wanted to get this on TV, but it failed. I could see why, where from this point on, the threat is much higher than the Grandis gang chasing after you with their fun tank that transforms. It's like men are going to shoot you to death for reasons you're not sure of yet.
I think this could actually be put on kids' TV now, maybe just without showing the blood. But by comparison, the Harry Potter stories, like they kind of have this moment too where in book 4, book 4 is I think the first time Harry just sees a corpse. Like he sees a person killed and this is a corpse and this is serious now. Like that, it has a similar moment to this. So this is like, it's not him happening upon a corpse. He at least sees the person get killed in front of him. So it feels like a battle instead of just a contemplative, oh, these are dead people. Oh no. And just like, there's so much quiet in this episode. I really like how much time they take.
Yeah, both for the viewers and the characters, now your perceptions have all changed. Like, this is what this story will be from now on. It's not going to be antics and adventures across the globe. It's going to be a murder and the threat of death around every corner.
Yeah. Well, in all these previous episodes, too, they had multiple times where, actually, in the previous episode, they have multiple moments where Nadia's like, why do you trust people so much, Jean? I don't trust anybody. Like that kind of stuff. Now Jean is like losing his innocence. He's like,
oh, for sure.
Oh, people can just get shot in the woods and no one will find them. Like they're just left on corpses on the road. That's horrible.
So we do think that a mother, a father, their little girl, and a dog were all shot to death. That's what we see on the screen. But the little girl starts waking up. Apparently, she was saved. Her mother must have shielded the bullets from her or something like that. And the soldiers come back. They go into hiding. And King appears again because things can finally get a little bit lighter. Because at least one person is not dead out of this family.
Nadia's reaction to like, oh, King, thank God you're here. I think that's also them saying to the audience, like, here's the cute thing again. Like, let's chill out. At least... Marie being introduced as under her mother's corpse is quite an intro.
Yes. I mean, this episode gets dark. I think the ending is one of the darkest endings for a seemingly lighthearted show, which is another reason why I chose this. We'll get to that eventually.
Yeah. But it's seeing her here too. It's this interesting thing that happens when you start getting into an anime. That if every character who's in the OP isn't in the first episode, you keep waiting for like, well, when's that character going to show up? They put him in the intro. It's got to be soon. So then when you see Marie, you maybe are thinking, wait, she can't be dead. She's in the opening.
Yeah.
But at the very least, you're taken off guard. Like, wait, that's one of the opening characters is finally here, but you're making me think about all these dead people and a dead dog.
The OP gave too much away, but
I think on Nickelodeon they would cut that dead dog even now. They
yeah,
wouldn't show
yeah. I mean, that's how heartless these people are. But so they start talking to Marie. And unfortunately, she asks too many questions because the unfortunate fact they have to tiptoe around is like, your parents are dead. You don't know what death is. And we have to lie to you until we're out of danger and we can actually tell you what happened. So
And she's 4.
Yeah.
She doesn't know. It is cute that King instantly takes to her. I do like that.
Yeah, yeah.
It feels like a pet recognizing grief and wanting to comfort you kind of moment. Though King is a little smarter than the average. Pet.
He's a real pen style mascot character. So we find out from Marie that the family was going to hide in the old village, and she'll show them where that is. And I like how after this tragic scene, there's a bit of comedy in that it's sort of dramatic irony for the viewer and for the characters in that Nadia and Jean are both absolutely fucked up by all of this nightmare tragedy and also having to lie to Marie. And Marie is confused, thinking everything is normal, why these two people are like weeping and embracing her. And in fact, the line before the act break is her going, oi, after like Nadia like grabs her and hugs her.
So cute.
Yeah. But it's like a nice moment of levity, her going like, hey, what's going on? Hey.
But dark comedy.
Yeah.
Like at the root, but the comedy of you knowing more than a character knows. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I think Nadia is like, oh, you're so smart, Marie, because Marie is like, oh yeah, they told us to go to the village, and Nadia is like, you're so smart, and Marie is like, my mom always tells me that, and Nadia's like, oh, Marie, and she like grabs her and hugs her, and she's like, what are you doing?
Oh God, I mean that feels like an Anno kind of complication for things too. He's like, well, I know he firmly established these happy-go-lucky characters, but how they deal with death? How they deal with death? How they deal with it?
Yeah.
Like, let's ask this question.
All of these kids have a different understanding of death, and one doesn't really know at all. So we, after the act break with the shrieking woman, not a fan of that act break. It really wakes you up.
Yeah.
You're like, oh man, the show is slow paced, but I'm ready for Act 2.
I do like, the international flair of it being said in English and written in English.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's fun.
I need an oven there, though. Give me an of. Secret of Blue Water. So we are now at the enemy base. We don't know who these people are, but one soldier is reporting to a superior that they shot down a plane, haven't found those survivors, but they captured a weird trio. And this superior thinks that this plane might be from the Nautilus because they have an aircraft and no one else can fly.
Yeah, the red hat guy immediately makes you think he's the leader, but he's a mid boss. That's his thing. But yeah, again, this is 1889. Nobody can actually fly. Nobody has an actual plane.
Not yet.
So his reaction is not, oh, that's crazy, someone can fly. It's must be from the Nautilus, the ship we met in the previous episode.
Only they would have that power.
Yeah, Atlantis was, we're already getting hints that Atlantis was way ahead of human, regular people technology. And that these are the nemesis of the Nautilus, the same people who were attacking them in the previous episode. I also like, in general, how they play these characters. This cult, at least in this 4-episode block here, even when they get knocked out and have their outfit stolen, you don't see their faces. Like, these are not humanized for you at all. These are evil people who you don't want to know what their secret identities are.
I never thought of that before, but you're totally right. And it also saves them on lip sync.
That too. Oh yeah, a very smart design as well. But I mean, it looks great. They all look great. Yeah.
It's a really creepy design too. I like it's far enough from the clan that I don't always think of the clan when I see them. But I mean, any pointy hat like that, pointy hat with a robe or whatever, you're thinking of the clan.
Well, and then below the neck, they're kind of Nazi-esque outfits as well, too.
They're two kinds of fascists.
Yeah, it's two fascist flavors for the price of one.
So we're back at the old village. We're there for the first time, and that's where people were going to hide out apparently, but no one is there. And Marie starts talking about her parents, so of course they want to change the subject. And like, well, what do your parents do? And we find out that her dad worked at the power plant on the island, and Jean is wondering, like, why is there a thermoelectric power plant on this island? What could possibly be happening here?
Marie is so cute describing how much she loves her mom's food. That's why they're like, you know what, let's change the subject. And yeah, but also like Jean Jean needs to know more, but the only person who can tell him is Marie. So by asking her questions, they are slowly walking towards her remembering.
Yeah. It's sad, but they're also playing it for a bit of humor in that they're like, let's not talk about your parents. How about we change the subject entirely?
And then we get the name of the dog too to make it even sadder.
Yeah,
Mookie.
like Mookie.
Mookie
From Do the Right Thing.
Guess that was coming out around the same time.
That was an 89. That was an 89 movie, but so we get a flashback from Marie's perspective, adding to the tragedy of this episode, and that they're removing tears from your eyes with like a syringe. And that Marie remembers, running away with her family, men appearing with guns. She doesn't know what guns are, but her family, they all fell asleep and they got cold. So from a little kid's perspective, he's like, my parents haven't woken up yet, but when they wake up, they'll come back and see me again.
Mama just got colder and colder.
Yeah,
Oof,
it's pretty heavy.
And they take, after she finally describes that, they take like 5-10 seconds to just linger on the grief before the next plot point comes in.
Then you hear an explosion, and all the men have found them because they lit a candle in this abandoned cabin in this abandoned village. Yes, it's their fault. So now, once again, real ass danger. They were on the run before from Grandis. Now they're on the run from men with machine guns, an entire army, basically.
Who are very ready to just shoot and ask questions later. When they shoot out that candle, as far as they know, they might be shooting a child in the face. They don't know.
They're ready. So they order Jean to come out at the count of 5, or whoever is in the building. They don't know their children are in there. And the guy who was giving the commands, like, when they come out, fire. Like, kill them on sight immediately. And there's a really weird cut in that they're giving the kids to the count of 5 to leave. They're all hiding. Jean sees some rags and ropes in the corner, and nothing comes of that. Absolutely nothing comes of that. And I watched it like 3 or 4 times again. I think maybe that's one of the things that was lost in those, like, which is the final version of the storyboards. We don't know. Like, maybe that was part of a different plan to escape.
I forgot. Nothing comes. Their trick is simply opening the door slowly and then
running out the back. Yeah,
that was it. I don't know how that works. I guess you can assume with those rags and sticks, he created a little pulley system that could open the door.
It's not really communicated well, but I found it confusing, but I did watch it like 3 or 4 times. Like, no, nothing happened with that. So yeah, for whatever reason, the front door opens. That's when they basically blast the cabin apart with machine guns, and Nadia, Jean, Marie, and King all run out the back.
The animation on that is really good too. Like they handled the violence animation pretty well in this episode for the TV budget they were dealing with.
We have not remarked that much upon the animation yet, but it is super, super high quality for an 89 TV series.
Yeah. I mean, so while still being, TV, I'd say it looks as good as like one of the best DuckTales episodes for a contemporary show.
It's very pretty. Not quite as high budget as like Evangelion, but they're operating at a loss here.
Characters don't move as much, but also like the key character designs are all just so appealing to look at. And man, I just can't get over the HD transfer on it is so good. It's such a clean show.
You can just smell the paint on these cells.
I love that I can smell the paint. Yeah.
So
and those guys are just as easily tricked and inaccurate as stormtroopers.
That's true. That's true. Although I think their guns are more accurate.
They do hit a little more.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So they take off to this river. Jean drops a rock in the river to throw them off. And they hide under a bridge. And Marie tells them, oh, yeah, we're supposed to go to the cave at night. And, now you tell us. Now you tell us this.
There's, speaking of animation mistakes, she does, for a couple frames of her going like, oh, the cave is over there. She looks a little derpy. Like
she's got some derpy, weird eyes going on there.
Yeah. Hey, it happens on those kind of deadlines and stuff happens. No,
you got to paint like 8,000 cells. One of them is going to be mispainted.
Yeah. The Simpsons is guilty of it at least once an episode, and they've got way bigger budgets and better time deadlines.
So once again, Marie brings up her parents, another bad subject we don't want to go near. She wonders if her mom and dad will be in the cave. Nadia's like, oh yeah, they might be there. So they're getting closer and closer to having to tell this kid what is happening.
Nadia's journey in this episode is finally getting the will to tell the truth the harsh truth to Marie. Like that's the end of her arc in this episode. I think too it's a smart move that they do, that they're kind of giving the viewer more and more hope too. They're like, oh, well, we were all going to meet in the town. Okay, then maybe they're going to meet other characters that will tell us what's going on this mystery island. No one's in the town. Oh, but he's meeting his friends in the cave. Okay, in the cave, there'll be all the other people, and then we'll finally have these mysteries solved. Like, it also is just it's a real tease of a mystery that you don't know what this island is, you don't know who these people are, who lives here, and the only person who can give you information is a child that doesn't remember things.
Has no concept of reality. Yeah, and actually, also the situation is providing the platform for lies. It's like, yes, plausibly they could be here. Plausibly they could be there when there was nowhere else to go on the island. You have to tell the kid the truth.
Yeah.
Because it's like, there's nowhere else your parents told you they would be, so we have to tell you your parents are gone forever.
Which also, too, it's now, Marie almost, like, reveals their position with her screams and stuff, so it's just a point of survival to keep her happy for the moment, you know?
So we cut back to, do we know his name is Gargoyle yet? Or does that happen in a future episode?
But this isn't Gargoyle anyway, it's the mid-boss. But yeah,
I mean, like Gargoyle's entire group.
I don't believe they give themselves a name in this episode now.
So just for our listeners, these are Gargoyle's men. Gargoyle is the villain of the series. And we cut back to his men, and we basically find out they know Nadia is there with the blue water. So the new orders are to kill everyone else, but to take Nadia and the blue water crystal, which is very important to all these characters for reasons that we don't know yet.
But you can guess it's in the title of the show. So.
Yeah. And also,
there's some secret to it.
They have to solve the mystery. And we find out, I like how flimsy in a fun way that Grandis's motivation is. They saw a poster advertising like wanted, the blue water crystal.
Love that.
And they're just, I want to see what their adventures were before this series. Like they were robbing banks or having fun capers.
It's such a cool reveal with her because you might be thinking like, well, wait, they're after the blue water, so is she. Is she working for these guys? Like, how evil is she? To then find out that she didn't even know these people exist.
Yeah.
And she just fell for a help wanted poster up in France somewhere.
Classified section, man.
Yeah, like wanted, one blue water. Oh, okay. And so that also means that these like trio of goofballs, they just fell into becoming Team Rocket just because of a poster.
Poster. And if they would have gotten the blue water, they would have been murdered on site after they delivered it, too.
Yeah, that's right.
There's no happy end for them.
Your eternal reward. That's what they'd get. She's her sheepish acting when she's like, I saw it on a poster. Like, that's a good drawing. They get a lot of emotion out of Grandis. I really like.
There's a lot of good character acting in this show. And so the Grandis gang is sentenced to a life of hard labor on the island. They'll be back. They'll be fine. Don't worry.
That's the price they pay for selling out the kids to these assholes.
Yeah.
But the Grandis gang in this point is all about self-preservation. So, and also they think the kids are dead. So they're just like,
that's true. Yeah.
Like, well, these kids who all died, this is who we were chasing. Yeah. So I can assume they didn't think they were putting the kids into.
Yeah. That's a good way to salvage their reputation for the viewer.
Yeah, and also this feels like this turn that is beginning here with the Grandis gang. This feels more like one of the Miyazaki things because Miyazaki loves a reformed villain.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that's a big thing in anime in general, like reforming the villain or having like a villain having a friendly rivalry or like the hero and the villain like pushing each other to do better.
Yeah. Rarely do they. That's why it's a big deal in, say, Dragon Ball when you meet Frieza, who's just like, oh, fuck you, I'll just kill everybody. I don't care.
There are rarely, not super rarely, but anime rarely does Joker-style villains, like pure chaos and, enmity for all mankind. There's usually more to it than that.
They make it more clear, and when those types of villains show up, they treat them as a bigger deal.
Yeah.
Or they're like a one-movie villain who will have no arc because they're just going to die at the end of the movie, usually hoisted by their own petard from their own doomsday machine. Those foolish guys as they go to some island and meet characters you'll never see again. In Future Boy Conan, it happened so much when me and my husband watched the whole series last year. There were a couple times where like, don't reform this guy. No. And of course they did.
Yeah, I don't like how Goku let everyone survive. No, kill Vegeta.
I think after Vegeta killed everybody, killed a million people, it might be time to kill him. Like, at the very least, Gohan fucking killed Cell. Like, no, this guy can't live.
Gohan's smarter than his father. So we're in the cave. Would you believe that there was nobody there? And it's full of supplies.
Easier to draw an empty cave than a bunch of people, too.
Yes, it really is. So thankfully they have supplies, but no people. Marie is out like a light with King, but
She's had
Jean
quite a day.
Yes, a really stressful day with her parents going to sleep. But Jean gets up and says he can't sleep. There's something he has to do. And then he grabs a shovel. So you know what he's going to do.
Yeah.
He's like, I can't sleep. There's something I have to do. And Nadia's like, let me go with you. And he's like, kind of trying to be like the man in the situation in a shitty way. Like, no, you have to stay here. And she's like, you can't do that alone.
It's true.
Yeah.
That's a lot of corpses to carry. I kind of like the stance of equality that Nadia takes. Like that also feels, not that Anno wouldn't do it in his work too, but it also feels very like a Miyazaki thing of, no, men and women can work the same amount.
Yeah.
Like it's a very proletariat thing too. But when I saw Jean get up out of bed and that he knew what he wanted to do, and he's like, obviously he had the moral clarity to say to himself, it's wrong to just leave their bodies out there. I should bury them, even at risk to me. When I see him doing that, I'm like, you are so much more proactive than Shinji. You get stuff done. Shinji would have just laid in bed for the rest of the series.
Listening to his mini disc player.
Yeah, he'd just be like, I don't know what to do. Everyone hates me. And Nadia'd be like, pick up a fucking shovel.
Yeah. And I mean, they're still under the threat of death from these people finding them, but they are like, we cannot let these corpses go in this situation. We have to give them the respect of a burial. These people that we don't know.
Yeah, and they even take the time to show us like the work that goes into digging the holes. Fortunately, they're not making us see them drag bodies.
Yeah. There's a time cut. So I think it's interesting in that the first 4 episodes are just like fun adventures with some sinister villains in the background. Who knows what's happening? And then episode 5, we meet a little girl. Her parents are dead, and the 2 main characters dig graves for them. And that is how the episode ends.
Yeah, it is a real tonal shift.
This ending like breaks me up, even though it is kind of pushing it a little too hard. The tragedy like in your face, like. They say to Marie, your parents are gone. They can't come back. They're in heaven now. And she's like, I want to go to heaven. They're like, no, you can't. You can never go.
Yeah.
And they're like, they have to be stern but loving to her. Like, no, you have to stay with us.
Well, from this scene, you can see why Marie starts treating them as her parents now.
Yeah.
They very much are taking on, the mother and father stereotypical roles here. Like Nadia is being the, sweet mother who also those like, I'm sorry, Marie. I gotta tell you, they're not coming back. They're dead, and this is what death is. And Jean is just standing there like the stoic dad.
Yeah, with his back turned almost.
Yeah. He should be behind a newspaper during that. When he finally hears something he has to reply to, that's when he turns around. He's like, no, you mustn't.
No, it's interesting. Yeah, I wrote that down too. They're taking the role of parents. Like they have to grow up super fast in this episode, and that Nadia is comforting her on the ground. And she's kind of just exasperated by trying to tell Marie, like, no, you have to stay alive. And then she says, like, Jean, like, please step in, say something. And that's when he says, no, you must stay alive, Marie.
Yeah, this it totally too. It's similar to Evangelion in that it's death and tragedy forces these kids to grow up sooner than they should. Like they should all just be having fun adventures, entering plane contests and doing circus acts. Like instead they're just ground to a halt in their lives and have to they just have forced upon them like, well, we have to be this kid's parent. Neither of us wanted to be the guardian of a child, but what are we going to do? Leave her there?
We have to survive this island and also raise this child. And the episode ends with just this little girl wailing over her parents' graves and finding out about death for the first time. It's a crazy just subversion of the tone of the series that I feel like they definitely earn. Like, it's a great mislead in that they really just punch you in the gut with this too.
Not a dry eye in the house as Marie sobs. And also a trick that they definitely used a number of times in Evangelion is hearing a contemplative version of the opening theme played under this somber moment.
And thankfully it's not Fly Me to the Moon, so you don't have to pay for it.
Yeah, they own the rights to whatever the song is. That's NHK. That also explains why ADV was able to license it when GAINAX hated ADV at the time. It's because they were licensing it from NHK, not them.
And NHK wants people to see Nadia.
Apparently. Please keep seeing it, please.
Give us your money. But that was episode 5 of Nadia. I will say...
the ending theme,
Oh, the ending theme, yes.
Yeah.
It's very good.
It's a very good theme. That also feels the most like them doing a Ghibli homage.
Oh, yeah, like
the
that,
line art, the chasing the sun,
that
the
looping animation's so cool.
Yeah, it looks so great, and the song too is just a nice. It is the real OP versus ED like feel and tonal shifts. It's and it makes me go like, yeah, I did just watch some television.
I learned a lot of things about stuff and felt a lot of ways about stuff. But yeah, that was Nadia episode 5. It's weird to do a series and do an episode on episode 5, but I hope we provided enough context to let you know how this changes the game of Nadia, maybe get you interested in watching Nadia if you weren't quite sure what it was.
Yeah, if we did episode 1, we'd just be talking about all the things that aren't in it and all the character moments that come later. And I mean, there's even way more tonal shifts after episode 8 too.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, and they're all exciting, and it takes you to interesting places. And it tells a complete story. You have my permission to skip the island episodes if you really want to and feel pressed for time.
I might do it upon this rewatch just because I know nothing will happen and I just kind of want to see the story again.
You did your time. You watched it once.
I reviewed those damn episodes.
I think totally the Blu-rays are worth it, and they're a great watch. I mean, it's not compared to Evangelion, it's not the groundbreaking genre-defining show that it was, but it wasn't trying to be that. Within the scale of the type of like sort of Eurocentric adaptation of world literature, I think it pulls off a lot of interesting things, and that follows the example set by Miyazaki and Takahata, but takes them to entirely original places that shows you that Anno is a brilliant creator in his own right.
Yeah, and not a lot of anime companies outside of Ghibli do this sort of Eurocentric, fun 19th century tales of adventure. So
I mean,
feel
GAINAX dropped it even.
Yeah, like nobody really wants to do it. So I feel like it is still pretty unique for what it is. But
well, I think GAINAX too, after being scarred by Nadia like this, I can see why they wouldn't want to go back to it anyway.
Yeah.
But also GAINAX, in the aftermath of this, I think they liked a little more fan service too.
Yeah,
which you can't really do in these kid shows.
No, I mean they get a little skeevy with Nadia, but not quite to the level where all the kids in Ava are just gonna be naked.
Yeah, the most you get is like Jean looking down her shirt for a second, well, actually, no. There's the bit where they're both showering in a communal shower, and he's tempted to look, and then she smashes him in the face.
You get some
something.
Classic peeping humor, which just goes with the territory.
Yeah, it's just look, it was a different time.
Yeah,
and also it would be an anime now too, but it's a different time then as well. I think. But meanwhile, you compare that to like the boner town that is Gurren Lagann.
Oh man, yeah. All the horniest animators left to form their own company. We'll see how horny they are with Promare tonight.
I'm looking forward to it.
But I will say, my final thought is like, if you like Evangelion, I think you owe it to yourself to watch this, because it is like the only other full anime TV series that Anno did as series director. And again, it involves all the people you love from Evangelion. So there are some tonal similarities with character animation, design. Like if you like things about Ava, I think you'll find a lot to like about Nadia. So thank you for listening, everybody. If you want to support our show and get every episode a week ahead of time and ad-free, please go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. You'll get just that and access to all of our limited miniseries and everything behind the $5 paywall if you sign up for just $5 a month. That is over 100 bonus podcasts. That includes everything we've done since we started this Patreon over 2 years ago, and everything we will do in the future as long as you stay a patron. I think it's a pretty good deal. And we also have something going on at the $10 level, Henry. What is that?
Yes, for our $10 and up Patreon subscribers, you get access to our What a Cartoon Movie podcast. If you enjoy this podcast, in which we did it about feature-length animated films, we do that on the What a Cartoon Movie only for our $10 and up premium patrons. We've done so many classics. Our most recent one is September's Cowboy Bebop, the movie. And, we mentioned it a ton here. I definitely think a great companion to this episode is our Kiki's Delivery Service one. I think you'll really enjoy it. And all of the other What a Cartoon movies. So please consider signing up at the $10 level or upping your $5 pledge to $10 a month to give all of those a listen. You'll get such bang for your buck.
So I've been one of your hosts for this one, Bob Mackey. Find me on Twitter as Bob Servo. I also have another podcast. It's called Retronauts, a classic gaming podcast every Monday and occasionally on Friday. Go to retronauts.com or look for Retronauts on your podcast device. I think you'll like it. Henry, what about you?
You can follow me, Henry Gilbert, on Twitter at HENEREY YG. I tweet out all my fun thoughts on animes and the news of the day and comic books and wrestling. But most importantly, whenever new things go up on the Patreon or on the free feed, I am also sure to tweet about it there. So you stay informed if you follow me on Twitter at HENEREYG.
That's all from us this week. We'll see you next week with an episode from Disenchantment Season 2, and we will see you then.
歩き出す時が来たなら Try 過ぎてゆく時の中で何を求めてゆくのか自分にしか見えないと分かっているから私に